This morning, that political standoff in Austin. Governor Abbott and the Texas House support the same idea to reduce property taxes, but is the Texas Senate dropping its plan? State Senators Paul Bettencourt and Royce West on how this one is going to get worked out. State inspections for your car are ending in most places across Texas, but the fees are not going away. We'll go to Austin to ask why. And will Ken Paxton finally go to trial, or might he resign before it happens this summer? A public prediction on Paxton's fate from Travis County GOP Chair Matt Makoviak.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning, the start of summer here, and lots left to do in Austin. Let's start with the top political headlines happening across our state. The Republican presidential race is returning to Texas. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is here this week. He has fundraisers in Fort Worth, in Dallas, Houston, and Austin. Nikki Haley and Mike Pence have also been through here collecting donations. Still, though, polls show that Donald Trump remains the frontrunner for Texas conservatives. The former Texas Secretary of State is coming out of retirement for another big state job. Governor Greg Abbott appointed John Scott there as a temporary attorney general. Scott is an attorney from Fort Worth. He served as Secretary of State last year. The elected attorney general, Ken Paxton, as you know, is suspended from office after the House impeached him. Paxton now faces trial in the Senate and could lose his job if convicted. And East Texas voters in Greenville and Sulphur Springs and Canton will elect a new state rep this fall. Brian Slayton resigned after a relationship with a young staffer. Governor Abbott set Tuesday, November the 7th, as a special election to replace him. A half dozen folks are running for the seat in the state house, including a couple of city council members from Greenville. Monday night, the Hunt County GOP Club is hosting a forum for all of the candidates. That is happening in downtown Greenville. This morning, though, we begin with that rare disagreement between the state's top three political leaders. Governor Abbott and House Speaker Dade Phelan support something called compression. That means it would pay a portion of your property taxes, the state would, reducing how much you actually owe. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, though, in the state Senate want to go further than that and also raise the homestead exemption. But the House passed its plan and then went home early, forcing a political standoff with the Senate. What happens next is anyone's guess. State Senator Paul Bettencourt, a Houston Republican, is our first guest. Senator Bettencourt, welcome back to the program. The governor has now backed the House version for property taxes, the compression version. Does that mean the Senate's idea to increase the homestead exemption, is that officially dead now?
No, it just means that we've got two people we need to convince. But the one person that we don't have to convince is all 5.72 million homeowners in the state of Texas. When you look at the Senate plan, it basically saves about $1,250 a year to $1,450 a year. It's blockbuster, eye-popping numbers. About half of that is the homestead exemption. So the public needs that homestead exemption to get that level of savings. And I look forward to a robust debate about it.
The House is adjourned, so it's just the Senate there in the Capitol right now. What are your options from here?
Well, there is something called restore. They can come back. There is some archaic language. There's always something,
Is that going to happen, do you think?
Well, they could. They should. I mean, we're going to come back and continue to work. The problem here is that, look, everybody can have an opinion, but at the end of the day, what matters to Texas taxpayers? And the bottom line is, we're not going to leave 5.72 million homeowners completely behind on a tax bill. It's the Texas two-step. It's the right plan for Texans because you get compression for all taxpayers and the homeowners get a whopping $100,000 homestead exemption, and it's permanent. That's the big difference between the two plans. The homestead exemption is permanent for 5 million plus homeowners in the state. Having a switch to just a compression only plan means that homeowners will get a lot less, like about half of what they could get with the homestead. So this is not an insignificant argument that's happening here, because if you're a homeowner and you're expecting, a tax cut of about $1,300 some odd dollars, well, the problem is you just lost 681 if you don't get that homestead, and the only way to get it is for the House to pass it and for the public to vote on it in November. And that's a big sticking point. And that started occurring on Monday because what happened was we were told it was, a compression or bust. And sorry, we're going to keep working because that's not a good enough answer for 5.72 million Texas homeowners.
Senator, are there any behind the scenes negotiations, any informal talks happening right now?
As best I can tell, there's talks happening informally. There's talks happening on Twitter. There's talks happening on Facebook. There's talks happening in the media. Yes, there's talks happening, but I think it's important just to take all the froth out of any discussion and just say, what's best for Texas taxpayers? Well, a 21.8% reduction in taxes, wherever you are on your tax rate, is a great thing. And an extra $100,000 exemption for homesteads is a fabulous thing. And the combination of that is a Texas two-step we all should be dancing to. And that's why the Senate has it in their plan. And that will save roughly $1,350 on average for every homeowner, all 5.72 million of them in the state. And that's why the Senate's pushing homestead exemptions.
Senator, before we let you go, I want to ask you about special sessions. I mean, the first one seems essentially dead. How many more do you expect this summer?
Well, I really have nothing else to do this summer. So, and I mean, we also have the impeachment, and so the Senate's going to be back no matter what.
Senator Bettencourt, we always appreciate the time. Thank you.
And let's hope we all live long and prosper.
All right, back to that standoff in just a moment. First, though, every year when you renew your car's registration, you have to get a safety inspection. The whole point is to ensure your vehicle is roadworthy. But Texas Republican lawmakers are doing away with it for some Texas drivers, not all of them. They passed a bill to abolish it. It heads to the governor now. Here's the catch, though. The fee that you pay for that safety inspection, that is staying. Ian Mitra is the senior managing editor of the Texas Tribune. He's in Austin as always. Ian, good to see you. If you live in one of the state's big cities, this is not going away, but the fee is staying. Why is that?
Well, in the bigger counties, in the 17 kind of biggest counties in the state, including, Dallas County, there's still a requirement of an emissions test that takes place. So that's the part that's kind of separate from the inspection fee. Or the inspection that's now not going to be mandated anymore. So that's kind of the difference for some of the bigger counties.
We've talked about this next issue a number of times in the program here. Texas lawmakers finally allocated $2 billion, two bills, to create a water fund to ensure the state's future water growth. That's a start, but as you've told us before, that's not enough to really get at what's needed, right?
It's definitely a start, but yes, this, state water study has kind of said that, for infrastructure needs, more than excess of $30 billion is needed over time. $2 billion is a good start, though. This is going to unlock some federal infrastructure funding. This will address some needs when it comes to kind of aging pipes across the state, as well as looking at projects to bring in more water, which is obviously, as the state continues to grow, the population grows, it's going to be a continuing need to find new sources.
Indeed so. I am back to you in just a moment. Thank you.
Coming up next, State Senator Royce West predicted it early on with us that school vouchers would not pass. So if the governor calls a special session for it this summer, will any votes change? And is the rare public disagreement over property taxes between the state's top leaders representative of anything else deeper between them? Matt Makoviak from Austin, when Inside Texas Politics returns.
Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. We began our program here with a Republican from the state Senate. Our next guest is a Dallas Democrat. State Senator Royce West on who makes the next move in Austin and how the politics of this moment affects you and I, the Texas taxpayers. Senator West, welcome back to the program. The House and the Senate really seem to be in a standoff right now over property taxes. How do you expect this is going to end?
Well, the reality is that there's a standoff. It's obviously a difference in opinion in terms of what's the best way to do that. But here's the problem. It's a problem for the Republican Party. The Republican Party has got to decide, leadership has got to decide which is the best proposal. Democrats can have input into the process, but the reality is that the decision-making will be made by the leaders, and that's going to be the Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker.
And that big decision everyone's wondering right now is, do you anticipate that the Lieutenant Governor might abandon his idea to increase the homestead exemption that he's been pushing for so long?
Knowing Dan Patrick, no, he will not abandon that idea. The fact is that many of us in the Senate believe it's a good idea to be able to. People have got to understand what the property tax is reduction is going to be. If you tell them you're going to increase their homestead exemption by $100,000, they understand that. And so messaging is going to be very important on this. His message is real clear. We're talking about a homestead exemption of $100,000, and in many instances will benefit homeowners up to some $1,400 a year.
Let me ask you about school vouchers, because the governor is adamant about this, and it's likely this is going to come back in a special session. I can't determine, though, whether any votes will change. Republicans in the House, suburban and rural guys over there, just have not supported this. You and I spoke earlier in the session, earlier this year, and you said you didn't think it would pass. It didn't pass. Is anything going to change if this comes back up in a special session?
Jason, I doubt it very seriously. I mean, the reality is that the rural legislators were kind of, how do I say, incentivized to pass vouchers by giving their independent school districts $15,000 to $20,000, some amount of money. Okay, and they didn't buy that. The superintendents of those rural districts didn't buy it. They didn't buy it then. I don't think they're going to buy it now. They won't buy it in special session, regardless of the number of special sessions that we had.
There is a budget surplus that you guys were dealing with down there in Austin, which is always a good thing. And
Yes.
You were able to bring a significant amount of that back to your district in Dallas for law enforcement.
That's exactly right. And it wasn't just me. It was a bipartisan effort where several of us got together and prevailed upon the lieutenant governor, put about $20 million in the budget. It stayed in the budget. And so the budget was passed. So the city of Dallas will have $20 million extra dollars in order to build the police center, which will be on the campus of the University of North Texas at Dallas. We were also able to get about $5 million for the deck park that's being built here in the southern sector of Dallas. So, we did pretty good. UNT Dallas was able to get some monies in order to begin looking at, check this out, Jason, establishing a school of optometry there and also expanding a nursing program there. So we did pretty good. UT Southwestern was able to get $101 million in order to continue to build out the mental health facility that we're building there. So we did pretty good.
There's a lot of other things going on besides all the headlines with school vouchers and property taxes and things like that. Senator, we always appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.
Now for some analysis on this week in Austin. Does this rare public disagreement between Dan Patrick and Greg Abbott represent anything deeper? We turn to Matt Makoviak, the Travis County GOP chair, for insight. Matt, it's good to see you again. Welcome back to the program. Lieutenant Governor Patrick and Governor Abbott publicly tangling like this is something that's pretty rare. We haven't seen before. What do you make of it?
Yeah, it is unusual. I think, they obviously don't agree on everything. No two people agree on everything, but they've kept disagreements private and really out of the public eye over the last, whatever it is, 2 terms they've been serving together. I don't know how this is going to get resolved. Presumably you get all 3 leaders together. You figure out, how you can square the circle. It's a policy disagreement. I don't think it foreshadows anything bigger or anything deeper. It's entirely possible the governor may be siding with the House on property taxes because he knows he's going to side with the Senate on school choice. And that's another major issue that's out there to be resolved.
Let's talk about Attorney General Ken Paxton. He's, of course, suspended from office after the impeachment. Do you expect he's going to take this case to trial all the way through trial, or do you think he might resign from office early?
No, I don't think he'll resign. I can't see how that would be in his interest at this time. Look, if you know one thing about Ken Paxton, it's that he's a risk taker. He's had a lot of problems over the last few years, legal problems. He's had a lot of opportunities to resign or admit fault or settle or do different things. He's never done that. And that's because I think deep down he believes he's never done anything wrong. The trial in the Senate is going to be very different from the process in the House. The House operated more like a grand jury. The Attorney General and his team had really no due process, no ability to introduce witnesses or evidence or anything contrary to what the House investigation found. The Senate's going to be different. It's going to be one side versus the other. I thought it was a sign of confidence that 6 of his top people in the AG's office have taken a leave of absence to defend him in the trial. That shows that he has some folks there in the AG's office that believe his side of this and believe he deserves to have a full defense.
Republicans are already taking sides in this. Obviously, we saw in the House. What do you expect a trial to do to the Republican Party of Texas?
It's an interesting question. Paxton's been an anti-establishment figure for a long time. He challenged our sitting speaker when he was in the House, when he was running for Attorney General. He got in the runoff and defeated Dan Branch, a leadership aligned committee chairman. So there, he's kind of gone against the grain to some extent for some time, and he has, been pretty resilient. The fact that he won by 10% in November of 2022, just a few months ago, shows that he was able to rise above a lot of these controversies that have been surrounding him. As it relates to the trial, look, the Senate is the most conservative Senate we've ever had in the history of the state. The Attorney General and the Lieutenant Governor have been somewhat aligned politically for some time now. I expect the Lieutenant Governor to remain neutral since he'll be presiding. Look, you need 9 Republicans to go with all 12 Democrats to get to that 2/3 threshold to remove him from office. I don't think they're going to get there. That's my belief right now. Now, we do have some time here. If this trial's in late July, there could be new facts that get introduced by either side, and that could perhaps change things. But I think it's a high bar, and my suspicion is the Senate will ultimately not remove him from office because they won't get 2/3.
Matt, thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Coming up next, which side is going to give in this political standoff? Is one side going to cave realistically? Reporters Roundtable is next. And to keep up with the Texas politics all throughout the week, subscribe to our podcast. It's called Y'all-itics. New content, fresh interviews. Episodes drop every Sunday, wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley.
Time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Ian Mitra is back with us from the Texas Tribune in Austin. Bud Kennedy's a columnist at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. And let's start with the big news happening in Austin statewide politically here, that standoff between the Lieutenant Governor and the House Speaker. Everyone's asking, Ian, how is this going to end?
Yeah, Jason, that's a great question. It's really hard to see right now because everyone is kind of holding firm in their positions. The governor made an appearance recently at the Texas Public Policy Foundation following a similar appearance by Lieutenant Governor Patrick, kind of really touting their plans and stuff. And so really it's hard to see anything going on here. We're gonna have to see how this plays out in public, because right now everyone's holding strong to kind of the way they think property taxes should be cut.
They are holding strong, Bud. You have Governor Abbott and the House Speaker Dade Phelan in one corner and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick in the other. I just can't see the Lieutenant Governor giving up his idea of increasing the homestead exemption.
Well, to put in real simple terms, the governor and the speaker are proposing the fairest tax plan. Lieutenant Governor Patrick is pushing for the most popular tax plan. When it plays out, if the argument plays out, more and more people are going to drift over to Lieutenant Governor Patrick's side because they want that homestead exemption. It's going to be tough for the governor to stand his ground the way that Patrick has on these issues. I think that over time, at least Speaker Phelan will have to come back and put forth a combined plan like he did during the regular session and backed off of in the first special.
Bernadine, obviously a lot of ego involved in this too.
Yes, but you know what, Jason? At the end of the day, they're going to have to come back and negotiate. And when you negotiate, no one walks away with everything that he or she wants. And I think that that's going to be a hard pill for Lieutenant Governor Patrick to swallow, because he wants it his way or no way. And that's not how you do it when you have 2 chambers and then you still have the governor. So I think that at the end of the day, they're going to have to come back and do some serious negotiating.
And for clarity, the Senate is still in session. The House is already adjourned. So I think what we've heard from both senators, Republican and Democrat, is that they're ready to negotiate. But the House is not right now, at least. So we'll see what happens on that one.
Well, like they said, you know what? You can make anything happen.
Sure.
So, but they're still, whenever they come back, they're going to have to negotiate. Yeah.
And the other big news, of course, is Ken Paxton. His trial is going to happen, I'm told, at least by August 28th this summer. Any chance you see at all of him resigning before this trial goes through?
That is hard to see. We've already seen, the Attorney General, Paxton, having folks from the AG's office kind of take a leave to work on his defense. This is an Attorney General who has been under an indictment since he basically first took office 2 terms ago, and has been very, clear that he's not going to step down. He hasn't stepped down amid all of these controversies, and so it doesn't seem like he's going to do that now. He's very much sounds like he's looking forward to kind of, defending himself in the Senate trial.
And Bud, the other news we heard on this case too is that the House has hired the legendary Houston attorneys Rusty Hardin and Dick Guerin to prosecute this in the Senate. And these guys said the other day that there's still a lot more to come out that no one knows.
Yeah, I think that's part of putting pressure on Paxton to resign. The point is, the House is stacking up a stiff prosecution against him. A trial would cost a couple $1 million if it goes several weeks. Both the expense to the state of Texas and the outcome would not come out well for Ken Paxton. At some point, that other Republicans are going to see that having Paxton on trial, particularly if more comes out, would not work out well for the other Republicans on the ticket either. And they would probably like to see him go back home to McKinney.
Bernadine, like everyone said, no one can envision Paxton leaving without going to trial.
Well, you know what? I wouldn't say that because he's never been in this situation where you have Republicans who are actually against Paxton.
Yeah.
And then when you get into a trial and all of this evidence starts coming out, you don't know what he might do. So I'm not going to say he won't resign. But what I will say is let's wait and see what starts coming out in this trial.
And when that comes up, the rules will be set June 20th. Can't wait to see what happens there. And of course, when the trial begins this summer as well. Ian, Bud, Bernadine, thank you guys very much. We always appreciate the insight. Thank you for watching as well. We're back next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics and hope to see you then.